virtual. Oh, wow. That Joe jumped on it. Thanks, Joe. We are now welcome everybody to the virtual village meeting for the month of May. My name is Eric Hoffman. I am the president of the Village Neighborhood Association for 2021. I'm going to share my screen. We'll jump into the deck. And what I was going to say is, as always, we want to hear from you. So whatever you're comfortable with, just jump in and speak, or use the raise the hand reaction, and we will make sure that you're heard, or you can always just type something into the chat, and my main man, Joe Vita, will be monitoring that, and we'll make sure that you are heard. All right, away we go. Let's see, let's share the screen. It's not like I haven't done a million Zoom meetings already. Okay, let's get this out of the way. Okay, can everybody see that? Take that tacit silence as a yes. Hey, thanks, Joe. All right, this is our board of directors for 2021, many of whom are on the call this evening. I want to just go back and say that at any time you have an issue, a community issue, a neighborhood issue, a downtown or larger Jersey City issue, please feel free to contact me directly. My email is right there. eric.hoffman@jcvillage.org, or you can email, as several of you have already done, the info@jcvillage.org, which I also get along with several other board members, and we will certainly do our best to represent you. Again, just as a reminder to all, the purpose or the mission of the VNA is really to support all of you, to inform all of you, and to be your voice when that is needed, should that ever be needed. Our agenda tonight, I went with the spring theme on the masks this evening, so I hope you are all enjoying the fact that we actually sort of skipped spring this year. We'll do COVID-19 updates. I'll be quick. Oh my God, I can't wait for that one to drop off the agenda item, but there are some, as you know, big picture items that have popped up recently relative to CDC guidelines and Governor Murphy's latest executive order. We'll talk a little bit about Jersey City initiatives in brief. That's primarily an update on the master plan process and the recent meeting that the DCNA was involved. That's the Downtown Coalition of Neighborhood Associations. So it's all the downtown neighborhood associations together with city planning, received a master plan presentation. And I want to tell you a lovely little story about redevelopment plans in Jersey City as a whole. There are a number of redevelopment plans, and there's an issue that has arisen, which is pertinent to a particular site in downtown Jersey City on First Street and Coles that is owned by Peter Mocco. And that just happens to be the site that is going to bring this all to a head. And I'll tell you a little bit about that. Village updates. We are welcoming Ben Torrei of BGT Development to present his buildings in a development presentation, then the open forum where you are free to say or sort of do anything within appropriate guidelines, right? Okay, let's jump in. So COVID-19 updates. As I've done in the past, I'll just sort of share my screen. This is that tableau, which is still being updated regularly by Health and Human Services. And, I think what's really the takeaway here is while we were away, while we missed all of you, we had a pretty decent size spike in cases in Jersey City as a whole in late April and early April and late March. We're back on the downtrend. Certainly the vaccine has a lot to do with it. There are a number of walk-in sites now to receive the vaccine. So obviously we encourage all of you to go do that. The more, the higher percentage of population that gets vaccinated, the more things can continue to open up safely. I will just say there on the jcnj.gov website, there's a page on vaccines, and there's an entire list here of where to get vaccinated. Here in the village, we have Ferris High School, which is listed as 35 Colgate. That might seem odd as an address because Colgate stops at First Street, but it is in fact picks up on the other side of Christopher Columbus. So this is really effectively on Brunswick and Christopher Columbus, just about 200 feet in from that corner. They have now changed their signage to say walk-ins available. So again, I encourage any of you or any of those that you know that have not yet been vaccinated. It is now a walk-in scenario, simply an ID with you. You don't need insurance. You just need an ID and you can go get yourself the vaccine. And then, I think probably the more exciting, if you will, and also horribly confusing because of the way it was rolled out, are the new CDC guidelines. And the new CDC guidelines are, pretty straightforward. If you just, do, again, the cdc.gov has a page that tells you now it's geared towards, what can you do when you've been fully vaccinated? So as you know, in Governor Murphy's recent executive order, the mandate for wearing masks outdoors has been lifted. There are, in fact, some businesses that are starting to lift their own mandates. I know that in New York City, you can now walk into a Starbucks and order a coffee without wearing a mask. I've found this out unexpectedly recently. But again, this is really, it's an honor system, right? I mean, we're not getting tattoos or any pins or t-shirts that we wear daily that tell people that you've been vaccinated. So I encourage you all just to, be apprised of the current guidelines and follow them accordingly. I will say, after so many months of wearing a mask, like all the time, it's a little weird. I still have one, on my wrist when I'm walking the dog in the mornings, but this is really a matter of everybody's own individual comfort level. But again, the CDC has come out and sort of blazed ahead of most everybody else insofar as allowing some of these opening guidelines to continue on the uptrend. So I just want to tell you a little bit about this. So as you know, we've talked about the master plan that Jersey City has undergone a series of RFPs. They've enlisted design professionals that are looking at every neighborhood in Jersey City and coming up with an update to the master plan. That completed document is, I'm going to say, ballpark estimated to be done in 2 to 3 years from now, and that's going to be important when we talk about the next segment, which is the redevelopment plans. But I'll get to that when we get there. I will say that we received a presentation, and it's hard to say if it's a matter of the individuals that are in city planning presenting the information. There's a significant number of junior staff members. The presentation was given to the DCNA. I'll just say it was a little underwhelming. It sort of felt like I was back in architecture first year listening to kind of a student presentation, and I don't know if that was an attempt to try to dumb down the information so that it was understandable, but basic questions when, for example, discussions about the open space and open space guidelines came about. The question was posed, well, what is your goal percentage of open space, given we know that the area of Jersey City is finite, right? What's the percentage of open space that you're after? Crickets. It seems like a very fundamental datum to establish when you want to talk about what are the open space goals for a master plan, to understand what the goals are and what good master planning would dictate as said goals. But ultimately, look, it's a work in progress. There are, as I said, 2 to 3 more years of this to happen. And I know that the level of competence in the design professionals and people that have been engaged in the process is quite high. I just feel like the community outreach and the way that things are being presented needs to kind of get up to that next level. That we used to have some representation like that in Jersey City, but I encourage you all to take a look at it. Joe's put a link in the chat for you to take a look at the master plan progress and the different areas that they're studying. It's comprehensive, right? So while you are seeing little bits and pieces that feed into a master plan starting to emerge, like protected bike lanes and new parks, new schools. These will all ultimately feed into a document, which, master plan is it's not doctrine, right? They're guidelines, and they're intended to, when development uh, continues, as it certainly will, they're intended to guide that. So you can understand what's appropriate in any given neighborhood. At the moment, we're all just winging it, as we have for years. We see something that we feel is inappropriate or too much bulk, we flag it or we fight it, and planning is sort of leading the charge on that. But given just the immensity of development in all of Jersey City, this is something that the city's really trying to accelerate, so that there is in fact, a series of guidelines that are put into effect that make it, provide a little clarity on any given plot of land. So you've heard that term spot zoning, so that spot zoning doesn't have to occur. So there's a very clear, breakdown of, you're on one side of the line or the other, and this is what you can and cannot do. Any questions or comments on that? Did anybody attend any of the community master plan presentations? No, it's okay. So we'll continue to update you on that, and as documents get honed, we'll of course put them out, links in our newsletter, and let people know about them. One fun little thing coming up, kids bike ride June 12th. If you have kids and you ride bikes, this is actually super fun. It's a way to explore the protected bike lanes. They're not perfect. They tend to break down as you get toward Paulus Hook, but for the most part, it's pretty impressive. The level with which you can ride safely, and in some cases you're protected by parked cars, which the bike lane is between a car and the curb, and in some cases it's like a median. In other cases it's simply poles, and then when you get down to Grand Street toward Paulus Hook, it just they take the green line and they just paint it in the middle of the street, like, okay, what now? But in any event, this is a fun thing, and there are prizes along the way. They were giving out helmets and goodies last year along the way, so I encourage you to do this. It's a fun one, and it's a nice way to kind of get out and see what you may not have seen as of yet, which are these protected bike lanes throughout the city. So I'd like to tell you this little story about redevelopment plans. So here's the issue as a whole. In Jersey City, there are like 60, 90, there are a number of redevelopment plans. And why that's important is, for example, where I live, this area is zoned R5. But there is a village redevelopment plan, which anything in the village redevelopment plan, or in any redevelopment plan for that matter, supersedes any of the local zoning, right? So it becomes a very important document. And these are historic documents. For example, the village redevelopment plan, which I'm going to talk about here, was written in 1980, and it had a 40-year expiration date. So guess what? It just expired. Now, that may seem like not such a big deal, but it turns out it's a huge deal. And there is literally nobody in the city that currently has an understanding of what should happen. In other words, it becomes a legislative issue. In order for a ruling to be made, whether or not to or how to treat an expired redevelopment plan, legislative action needs to be taken. And at the moment, nobody is sort of taking said action because it's not clear what would happen. Now, I'll just tell you, planning initially went back and they engaged their own law department to try to study this issue. The unfortunate reality of that is the planning department's law department, they're not land use attorneys. So this isn't really their bailiwick, right? So they initially said, well, what we think should happen when redevelopment plans expire, they should revert back to the original zoning. So in the case of this particular site, 303 to 311 First Street, the renderings of which are shown here, they are at First Street in Coles. This is the location of the old art supply store. And this particular site, was purchased in 1985. So 5 years after the redevelopment plan was written in 1980, the Jersey City Redevelopment Agency, the JCRA, sold this plot of land for what I'm told is very little money. I don't know if it's kind of a governor's island, you buy it for a buck deal. I'm assuming it was a little more than that, but it was, significantly below market value. And the understanding was that the onus was on the developer to develop this site within 2 to 3 years. So that would have meant that we had, a beautiful new building circa 1988. As you know, it's still an empty lot. And now that the redevelopment plan has expired, again, the attorneys came back and initially thought this should go back to the original zoning. Well, there's a problem there. The original zoning for this particular site is a C2 zone. The C2 zone no longer exists, right? So the sort of conundrum compiles at this point. Then they came back and said, well, then it should go back to whatever the zoning is for that particular plot of land. It should be the NC, which turned out to be incorrect because the line for the NC, if you're looking at this rendering, the road on the right-hand side is First Street as rendered. And that's that funky little corner with the Pino's Pizzeria at the triangular lot. And then Newark Ave is adjacent to that. That's really the line of the NC. So this is R5. That in and of itself presents the real pickle here. So the redevelopment plan for the village allows for what you're seeing here. It allows 5 stories. The R5, as you know, does not. It allows 3/1. So as you can imagine, it has now set off a firestorm of litigation and appeals, many of which has already been underway. There is currently an appeal filed by Peter Mako's representation. What he's looking to do is be able to build under the guidelines of the redevelopment plan. Since this redevelopment plan is now expired, there's no one really knows what to do. It gets a little complicated when city council gets involved, as they have. And Councilman Solomon, I'm going to say to his credit, is really looking to get affordable housing anywhere in Jersey City. And this particular site was earmarked as a potential. So the idea of extending master plans or simply eliminating their expiration date, which is what planning was initially trying to do, has been outright halted. So at the moment, the appeal for this particular site was going to go before the zoning board early June. It's now been pushed to, I believe, June 24. So we are all watching this very closely. I imagine the entire development community is watching this very closely because, again, what planning is really looking to do, and they're trying to get council support. They want to buy time, right? They want to either leave these redevelopment plans in place and buy time until the master plan comes out, because again, the master plan overlaid on this would help inform what really should be at this particular corner.
Yeah. I know.
Did somebody want to say something? Okay, no problem. So, again, this is becoming a sort of landmark case, and I don't mean to overstate it. I don't even believe that I'm overstating it. This is an issue that's going to affect all of Jersey City. There are order of magnitude 15 redevelopment plans that are set to expire within the next few years before the master plan document is going to hit the streets. So it's a concerted effort, kind of by everyone to try to understand what can happen here. And for those of you that were around when this building was presented, there wasn't really much we could say because it was as of right. As you're seeing in this rendering, it's as of right. It followed the guidelines of the redevelopment plan. And now there's, of course, a much larger issue at hand. And, from what we're told is this is truly legal uncharted territory. There isn't precedent that anyone can find for expired redevelopment plans and what cities, not just Jersey City, but anywhere in New Jersey, have done in this particular case. So, understanding that it would take a policy decision to, make amends and pave a way forward. It's just becoming a bigger animal. So, we'll keep you apprised of what's going on here. There are some nuances, to this specifically, developers cannot go before zoning on an issue like this. It's just not an issue that is allowed to be heard direct by a developer to zoning. So it needs to be done through legal channels. Are there any questions on that? I know it's a big can of worms. All right, I'm going to go ahead and editorialize for a minute before we move on to the next segment. And I'm simply going to say that, for our part, while we were fine with this building, we didn't know the history of this particular plot of land. The fact that this plot of land was sold for the amount of money that it was sold for, with the understanding that it should have been developed by 1988 or 1989, and is still not sold. It's kind of like, I mean, how much time did you need, right? And now that the redevelopment plan is expiring, it's obviously becoming a big issue, because lopping off that top floor, as you can imagine, is big dollars. So I have little sympathy for this particular development team, especially knowing their history for nefarious activities in Jersey City, but there's nothing we can do about it at this point. I can assure you that if community involvement or community voices are required or will make a difference, then we will certainly let everybody know. But for the moment, it's in the hands of council, of various legal entities, and of city planning to figure out what exactly to do. What we've done as the DCNA is we've agreed to go back through these 15 or so redevelopment plans that are set to expire and just understand what's in them. Because we want to be able to flag issues just like this that might call out future cases where something like an entire story of a building would no longer be allowed if this were to revert back to the current zoning. Okay. Real quick, Ben, you're almost up. Village updates. So two things I want to talk about: the good and the bad. So the good is Village Park is fabulous. Apologize for any background noise. There's a spirited game of soccer and kids going on. The Smart Start Academy and the daycare on 2nd and Brunswick have been coming in and using the park regularly. It's just wonderful to see. Our seeding of the grass has mostly taken hold. We'll do it again in the fall. Turns out the fall is the best time to seed grass in the Northeast. Spring is second best time. So we did it in the spring. We had it shut down for about 6 weeks, just the lawn portion that is, and it's reopened. The city delivered us some mulch, which we put out over a mesh material that is weed inhibiting, but allows water to penetrate the roots. So it's looking really great. Please look for an email. I was targeting this weekend 2 weeks ago before I realized this was Memorial Day weekend. So we'll push it out, but please look for an email asking for volunteers to come in and just help us do a little weeding. We got a little bit of money. Thank you, Michelle, to buy some new grasses. So like in this image here, these are the grasses that were native to the original design. Many of them have eroded or deteriorated over time. And so when we do all of the weeding, we're going to find some bald spots, and we're just going to fill them in with these beautiful new grasses. So I expect the Village Park to be looking absolutely fabulous in, call it 3 to 4 weeks from now. But please do come out and help if you are so inclined. So that's the good. The bad has to do with quality of life. So prosecutor Jake Hudnut heads the quality of life division in Jersey City, and the quality of life division are police officers, and they are in charge of just that, right? Trying to enforce and maintain the quality of life. And as we mentioned on this meeting a couple of months ago, local neighbors and community members have reached out and are having some significant issues with crowd behavior, crowd control, noise mitigation relative to India's bar across the street. So what we did is engage the prosecutor just to understand what are they allowed to do and what are they not allowed to do. It turns out that, as we learned when we went through the discussion with Gringos, who was seeking an entertainment license, in order to have DJs, as an example, you need to have an entertainment license. So Indios has been, routinely scheduling DJs. The noise is really quite abhorrent, and it goes quite late. And the crowd, it's unfortunate. I sort of didn't want to really believe this and just wanted it to be like my own, interpretation of events. But it's 100% true that, when Jose was alive, the crowd was just more chill and not as, call it detrimental to the neighborhood. We as a neighborhood organization, we want them to succeed as a small business, of course, but not at the detriment of the neighbors around us. So they have been informed that they need to get an entertainment license. They have gone in and formally, picked up the paperwork for an entertainment license. And we are requesting an audience with the Department of Commerce, simply to voice our concerns and to request if a license is granted, that it comes with, restrictions on noise specific to, the time of day or night, right? With Gringos, there were restrictions on outdoor music, no outdoor music, the doors can't be open. They have to shut down at a certain time, and those times varied, during the week or during the weekend. Those were a little liberal for this. I mean, look, this is a residential zone neighborhood, right? This isn't the same kind of scenario that Gringos has overtaken, but it is a very similar, plight, and we're doing whatever we can to kind of get out ahead of that. Again, the entertainment license is something that generally is granted outside of residential zoned neighborhoods, and it's generally granted when you have a kitchen. I didn't realize that this was a criteria, but turns out it is. So I don't know if they're inclined to grant one, but we are making sure that our voices are heard, so that at least there's an understanding of the circumstances surrounding it. Go ahead. Somebody jumping in? Okay, fair enough. All right. Okay, so at this point, I want to welcome Ben Torrei. I would like to, Ben, I assume you want to run your slides. I'll stop share and you can jump in. I can't see everybody. Are you back, Ben? Was I too fast?
Me?
Hey, there you are.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, it's totally fine. I will stop share. I assume you'd like to go ahead and run your own slides, yeah?
Completely up to you. You have the latest slides, I'm assuming, from the last email we shared. So, but I can, yeah, I can. You know what? Let me take a stab at it, and then you can jump in.
All right, fair enough.
So I just can't quite share myself yet. It's disabled.
Oh, sorry about that. It's not intentional. Is that something you can do, Joe? Otherwise, I can just bring up the plans and Ben can.
Yeah, if that's easier.
Fair enough. Just bear with me 1 second. I have it open in Bluebeam, but Bluebeam is not a nice program for presentation mode. Okay, where would you like to start? Any preference? 325, 306?
325.
All right, 325 it is. All right. Everybody see that okay? Let me just make sure we're in the current set.
Yep.
Yep. All right, you tell me where to go. I'll go on mute and drive.
Sounds good. So we have already presented this project once before. We initially had a conversation with planning back in September 2020. And basically at that time, planning had taken the interpretation that this is a triangle and there's no variances required. So that's the first time that's ever happened to me in a variety of projects I've ever presented. And I was very proud of that moment. So I came to the VNA and said no variance is required. And basically it's a 5-story project, 100% lot coverage. The existing buildings on the lot are 100% lot coverage today. And that's more or less what we presented to you guys about 6 months ago, I believe. I don't quite exactly remember the presentation dates.
Yeah, it was back in October. Yep.
And planning now has taken a different position and said, well, we think there's a backyard variance required. So we are asking for a backyard variance. And we could have a academic debate as to where a backyard is on a corner lot. But we just decided not to have that debate with them and said, sure, no problem. So in the middle of all this, we have also added roof decks that were not in the original presentation that were shared with the VNA. So the changes on this specific project are twofold. Number one, there is a roof deck on the property today. And number two, there is a variance being sought for a rear yard setback. And happy to answer any questions on this specific project.
So, Ben, I don't know that this is the current set. It must be. It does have the roof deck. Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, sorry. Let me just do this just so that everybody understands what Ben was just referring to. Initially, this project, had no's across the board, right? And planning had made the determination that the rear yard setback was a variance that was required for this.
Well, initially we were told it was not required.
Yeah, no,
then they
understood.
said it's required. Yeah.
All right, so for the rest of you, we've seen this before. As you've heard Ben describe, the request for a variance for rear yard setback is now checked yes in the zoning table. The plans have not changed. In other words, the footprint remains the same. The bulk, excuse me, the bulk is ostensibly the same. And the addition of the roof deck, which is what you see here.
Eric, you do a better job than me, so that's perfect. Yes.
Well, I think I do want to go back to the blue beam, to be honest with you. All right, there it is. So I measured it out. 1,850 square feet as a roof deck, which, if my memory serves correctly, at 15 square foot per person as the allowable occupancy is 123 persons would be the as of right allowable occupancy on this particular roof deck.
I'm sorry. I that's the first time I've ever heard. 15
Yeah. So the metric.
Foot. I thought it was like 70 per person.
No, it's 15 for outdoor like standing so in other words, if you had permanent furniture out here, Ben, you would remove some of that square footage, but at 1,850 you are standing, and at standing it's a 15 square foot per person per the New Jersey building code.
Okay.
So let me just point out just architecturally what that does. The previous plan, you'll note the little yellow square that I drew in here. And let me just make that a little bit more obvious. Okay, there we go. So this is the elevator overrun, which would have been there. And I'm not going to. I'll save my own comments to see if anybody has any. But the initial plan we saw this yellow box is what was going to protrude above the roof. So the discussion about roof decks aside, what that does to the bulk of the building is in my mind a little, well, it's equally important. In other words, this piece as an elevator overrun, it would have required call it 10, maybe as many as 15 feet above the plane of the roof to house the equipment for the elevator. Once you occupy the roof, the elevator needs to reach it. So you're going to add the height of, an elevator cab or a story, let's say. So you're increasing the height of this by, let's call it conservatively 8 feet. And then you're introducing, the stairs and the egress corridor. Here, I don't want to misrepresent this, Ben. I just want to draw it properly. So in order to occupy the roof, you need two means of egress. You can see how they're treating the stairs here architecturally. This is all compliant. It works. And effectively now, the bulk that is, on the roof is going to be this volume. Okay, so that's in all cases. So the moment you occupy, you need to get both stairs up, and you need to have the elevator come up as well. So you're increasing your bulkhead size. Actually, the drawing below there, you can see what I'm telling you is not fake news. This is the size of the bulkhead, the dark gray there. Previously, we had just a little square. So obviously, Ben, I'm not trying to be coy here. I'm just pointing out this is one of our concerns, that the bulk of the building, the visible height of the building. Again, I'll be very clear that this none of this counts in building height. It's just perceived height, right? It's perceived bulk. In other words,
well, Eric, I'm sorry, I need to interject. This building is 52 feet, 52.7 feet tall, whereas all the adjacent buildings and the buildings that the VNA has fully supported are 75 feet, 80 feet. So what is the bulk concern at this point?
No concern. I'm just pointing out that it's not just about occupying the roof, right? It's about, you've now changed visually what is going to be seen from the street, from PS5. It's a different animal than a little pimple on the roof is what I'm getting at.
No. So across PS5 is not exactly this building. It's 333 Newark Avenue, which is the project that's currently almost finished by Ben Piccolo. That tops out at 75 feet, or it's literally 20 feet taller than this building.
Yep.
So, and that has an elevator roof deck on top of that, by the way.
Yep.
On 5 stories. So we actually think this is dramatically more reasonable than what's being built or approved all around the area, including, frankly, the project that we are building across the street from it, which also tops out at 75 feet.
Sorry, I'm just looking for the bulkhead volume in the elevation. It's not there. Because again, it doesn't count against your height. So that's one. So let's talk about the roof deck in general, Ben. I mean, look, I'll just be frank. Our concern here is when this was originally presented, there was no roof deck. Comment was even made that you're aware that we don't like roof decks, and now here it is. And honestly, I feel like that level of occupancy in this particular location is problematic. If you look at the city's, hang on, let me finish. If you look at the city's zoning guidelines, they encourage green roofs, green walls. It's written outright. These are encouraged uses, by the city of Jersey City, right? There it is. Green roofs and green walls are encouraged citywide. For our part, I'll be honest, including what amounts to a party deck that can be occupied by 123 people, as opposed to a give back to the environment, to the neighborhood, and doing a green roof, some kind of stormwater management system. This just struck us as a bit of an affront, considered what we had seen the
Eric,
first time.
I do have a slide prepared, if I can share my screen, with all the roof decks that have been approved and are in the immediate area. So I would love to share that.
Go right ahead.
I'm still disabled. Do you want me, maybe I can email it to you?
No, hang on. I got you. I found it. Try now.
Now I can do it. Is this currently up?
Yep, we got you.
Okay, perfect. So these are every single project that the green circles are the projects that we are referencing. And the highlighted are every single project that has been approved with a roof deck in the Village Neighborhood Association. And for the record, this roof deck is as of right. We're not seeking a variance for the roof deck. So I guess I would love to know why the VNA now believes, especially during COVID, where outdoor space is important, why the VNA believes that
you're a block from the park, Ben. That's not a fair argument. And honestly, that's pretty rude. You're going to use COVID against us. There's a park a block away from this. This is not about green space. This is about market value.
Eric, it's as of right. Please don't raise your voice. I'm here basically on, as you know, as a courtesy to everyone here.
As a courtesy, correct, because these plans were submitted to planning, which differed from what you showed us the first time. Let's just go there.
Okay.
Sure,
let's go there. Let's have that conversation.
So what we have all said is that it's important that if any changes are made, and if you'd like, I'll pull up the little clip from the recording where in the last meeting in October, you said, I will most certainly let you know if any changes are made. You did not do that. You submitted plans that included roof decks that we had not seen prior. Now, again, happy to have this spirited debate about roof decks. If it goes through, it goes through. My point is transparency and protocol. And it's just really, really important that these things are followed. If you wanted roof decks, show it to us in the first place.
Eric, you have developers in town that are building 2 extra floors, and you guys are making comments and frankly accusing us of going around you and trying to hide things from you, which is what the emails reference, frankly, right?
And so what would you call it?
This was not done with zero intention. I frankly did not think I need to tell the VNA that I'm doing something as of right.
We asked you to let us know about any changes to your plans, Ben. Okay, look, that's it.
Apologies for that. I also sent you an email apology on that front as well. So
yes, you did indeed, so that everyone can hear, and I appreciate that. Fully accepted. We'll move on. Apologies for raising my voice. Let's talk about the roof deck as a benefit to the community or a benefit to the building, understanding that it's as of right. Is this something that the community wants, or is this something that we feel is a concern?
Eric, if I can talk.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for everybody, seriously.
And we've had many, this is not us ganging up on Ben Torrei. This is a conversation that has been had many, many times. And look, we lose on roof decks. We had actually, when we were rezoning the R5, gotten roof decks to not be part of the R5. The planning board passed that because as a community, we were concerned this is a community of low buildings, and a roof deck on a low building is a very different thing than a roof deck on a 20-story building or a 40-story building. It produces noise, and with buildings very close together, there can be access. I mean, if you just saw, there have been a lot of roof deck parties in New York. A woman just died going between buildings. Now, this building is 3 feet away from our building. It is, according to Ben, 52 feet high, 52 and a half feet high. Our building is 47 feet high. So that is not a huge distance. And as a security concern that people can hop between and that they are regularly allowed. But as a neighborhood, we've had many, 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 many discussions about roof decks. We talked about Peter Mako earlier when we were discussing 245 Newark, and one of our conditions for him remediating the problems he had was him getting rid of that roof deck. And I will tell you, his neighbors are very happy about that there is not a roof deck. There is a big difference when you have a multifamily on a low building with a roof deck. There is noise and security issues. And as a neighborhood, we have said it repeatedly. We don't always win. In fact, we often don't, which, you know, the fact that Ben has this map up showing all the times we've lost on roof decks. It's true, but this is not us ganging up on this building. This is continuing a long-held concern about roof decks, particularly in multi-story buildings. And it's not necessary. Is it as of right? Yes. But do you want to fight the neighborhood over it when 7 months ago, you actually said you didn't have a roof deck because you knew we had concerns about them, and now we're expressing them? That's all.
Robinson, so thank you for sharing that. Look, you are next to us, but as you know, there is a 3-foot gap between the building that's being proposed and your building because there are sideline windows on your property.
Mhm.
In addition, our roof deck is actually behind, and Eric, if you like to bring up the map, I don't know if I can stop sharing. Yes. So
which plan, Ben? This here?
just the roof deck, yeah, please. If you could zoom in on that.
Oh.
So the four stories is Robinson and Jim's place. There is a 3-foot gap between these two buildings, not to mention our staircase and elevator and green roof is actually blocking anyone from walking over, even if they were going to walk over. Not to mention, I don't know what they plan on doing once they walk over and hop over 3 foot and then drop 15 feet. So this was actually done away from your property. Having said that, it is a, frankly, I think, good thing to have on a corner property because there's really no balconies in this building. There is no community space in this building. There's really nothing. So it is providing something, actually.
Can I just want to make a request here, Ben. I made it the last time we saw the building, actually the very first time we saw the building, when you recall, you were having some challenges with the designs and trying to differentiate the two projects.
Yeah.
This, let's see, sorry about that. It's my daughter yelling out the window. I'm sorry, I'm going to go to the first floor plan. So the way that interstitial space between this building and the bulk buildings to the west of you is treated is a real concern for me. I know I had made this comment, you might recall, if you need, I think I said something like, listen, I know the neighbors, if you need some help negotiating, getting some kind of a gate here. I have grave concerns about this as a security issue because it's a long, narrow, it's not even an alleyway, right? It's potentially worse. And I would think you might have some concerns security wise, operationally, that, your bike room is here. If you have security cameras, okay, but I can tell you from living at the Saffron, the bike gets stolen. You look at the camera and you say, oh, yep, there's the guy, stole my bike. I would really like to see some sort of a, security measure, deployed that keeps people from sort of, wandering down here and engaging in any number of, nefarious or otherwise activities.
Okay, no, understood. Look, our intention was not to leave it open as an alleyway. Frankly, we would much rather close it up. Not to talk, obviously, square footage here, but if you do 3 foot by, 80 feet times 5 stories,
it's real money. Yep.
It's actually a substantial cut on the building. So happy to do whatever makes sense. Clearly, those security concerns are also our concerns for the building.
Yeah. I mean,
So
look, I think the, kind of relief that you're giving and the, let's call it architectural respect for the grandfathered windows that are on this side is a good thing. And I would hate to see that go away. I do think that your architect can come up with some sort of an architectural treatment, in terms of a gate or a door or something that just makes this less of a, invitation passageway for,
got it.
who knows, right?
Eric, look, let's. I'm not here to have a heated argument with the VNA. God knows I've been down that road many times, and it's not always healthy. I have many times. So what I like to do is I can't consent to eliminating a roof deck But if you guys like to discuss reducing the size, I'll be happy to have that conversation.
Why can't you discuss eliminating it?
Robinson, if you discuss eliminating the 3 roof decks and pool that you have on your roof deck, I would happily discuss elimination of this roof
Do you
deck.
think that there, hey, we actually have eliminated the pool.
Yes, you have a putting green. It's a
Yes.
nice choice, by the way. It was, a lot of leakage.
We had, look, there are 2, middle-aged people who live in this building who use those 3 roof decks very rarely versus 16 people, 16 families in yours. I think there is a big difference, and nobody has ever complained about us, and you don't know what's going to be there. And as Eric said, like, we've had leaks from that side in our basement. So I would actually like you to do something that helps with the problems that this neighborhood in general has. And
Sorry, what leaks from? Could you
from when it rains, they come in on that side of the building. But anyway, I have one other question. I mean, we do have a problem with roof decks, and you knew that, and you were respectful of it last fall. So I mean, I assume this is an economic decision. You want this, but I don't know, like, this could end up being a fight. We really feel strongly about roof decks that are this low and this big, and party decks, and you would have to persuade us that we are not going to be subjected to a party deck all the time. The other question I have is actually more to do with our building. Can we get an easement to allow us to repair, if need be, and repoint the building on the alley side?
If we can get an easement to do the same thing and use your roof for construction, absolutely.
I am not able to I'm not the building owner, so I cannot say that. But so you're only doing the easement so we can repair our building as a deal?
Well, you're asking for the same thing, it sounds like.
We wouldn't be on your roof. We would just be asking to repair our building using your alley.
Okay. Sure, we could have a conversation.
Okay, I think my lawyer is on this call, so she'll follow up with yours.
Hey, Ben, I just have one more quick question. I'm sorry, I was flipping through looking for the landscape details. First of all, I want to say I do appreciate your comment that you'd be willing to discuss reducing the size of this roof deck. I think if it doesn't go away, that's something that we would certainly be interested in. I would also be interested in, wherever it went away, it increases the size of the green roof, because that to me is a real true community benefit, given all the development and, the sort of heat island effect that we're, really marching quickly toward in downtown Jersey City. I guess my question is relative to the planting, and you may not know this yet, but I would ask that the caliper of this is rendered as if they're individual, like bushes or trees, right? I don't know if the idea is to do like a tray roof system, which doesn't really allow you that. I mean, to the extent you could get anything with actual height that has some, acoustic properties, even if it's just this tuft in here, is slightly higher planting. I honestly, I feel like that's something we would really like to see, and would very much appreciate as a gesture to sort of help what you've done with the bulk of this here as far as noise mitigation, similarly to the zone of landscaping that's there.
Okay, so like basically landscaping that would mirror almost a tree line.
Yeah, like I've seen,
5,
call it
7 feet tall.
Not even. I mean, honestly, when people are out here, it's anything that's like 48 inches or above, like you get 4-foot boxwoods in here or something, and you've actually, surprisingly gone a good way towards some acoustic mitigation for any noise that might be traveling due east.
Okay.
You should also consider that actually this roof deck will, if there's a party on it, will go straight into your tenants in the galleon. So
yeah, that's why Robinson, I think it's honestly a moot point, because the same way that it would go in the building, like the noise from the roof deck would go in the building first. So the building itself will make sure and police what happens in that roof deck. We have done now 6 roof decks
Mhm.
in various village buildings. Never had an issue because again, the building does police it itself. You have concerns, but the 16 people underneath that roof deck will have the same concern as you do.
I'm saying the people across the street in a galleon will hear it. You don't necessarily hear it. I mean, if it's a wild party, I suppose you hear it 2 floors down or whatever, but it's more the ambient sound around. It's just, you know what, I see what's happened in New York City, and Jersey City 10 years ago didn't have a lot of roof decks, and the village didn't have a lot of roof decks. Had I built this building, it would not have roof decks, but I did not build it. It's becoming a bigger problem. In New York, when I was growing up, there weren't roof decks because of security issues, because people could hop from building to building and, break in.
But Robinson, they can hop in.
It has become a real quality of life issue. And we as a village have many, many times said how much we hate it. But you have this right to do it. And so you are pushing for it, despite the fact that many people in this village really, really object to roof decks on buildings with this many tenants. And especially
Look, that's why I brought up the other slide. What frankly has been the objection by the VNA against roof decks?
We've noise and security. We have brought it up to City Hall, and look, we don't win as you have shown, but we are concerned that there are, and especially like the lower you go, the more people around you hear. Most of the buildings around there do not have immediate neighbors that can hear it. But this one will be able to be heard by people on 4th Street and by people across the way. It's at a major intersection. So yeah.
So again, I think to assume this is a party deck, it's
and how can
frankly.
you assume that it's not? How will you have control over those 16 families?
I know that people self-policing the past 7 years, if that's been an indication of what's happened. Can you point out to one single incident in the village from a roof deck?
No, but that doesn't mean such a thing doesn't exist. We don't.
Well, I would look. No, the VNA hears about a lot. So
how many people in the village knew about Indios and the problems? Only the people right around them. And the fact is, so the fact that even if there had not been any incidents up till now, look, your roof deck is 5 feet above our roof and 3 feet across. That's just like people jump between buildings, and that is a really close thing.
Robinson, they would be jumping if there was a roof deck or not. If frankly a roof deck is a concern, they would be jumping regardless. Frankly,
it's true.
Right.
And honestly, Ben, if you had asked me personally, I would have had you prefer you have a taller building.
Sure, I would. Would you rather see an 8-story building here? Happy to do it. We've done it before.
It's not.
It took us 5 years for the approval, if you remember.
But there need to be community give backs. But anyway.
If I could just jump in, Ben, for me, architecturally, my concern is really illustrated when you look at the graphics of this particular plan. I don't have the other one at my fingertips, but it's basically like green versus white, hardscape versus plantscape, right? And given that,
and Eric, absolutely. So let's have a conversation about what to do with it. Would you like us to reduce it by 30%? Happily to do it. It won't. Look,
I think
Robinson's
honestly.
concern,
sorry, go ahead, Ben.
No. Robinson's concern won't still go away, right? Like if it's attached and too high, people won't jump. Well, if they jump now, they die. They won't die. Every building in Jersey City is attached. So we are frankly using an argument that, I don't think holds any true merit.
Hey, if you drop to 30%, you're down to 86 people in total occupancy. Sorry, I can't help myself. I had to do the math. No, but my point is really like I have concerns about stormwater management. I have concerns about the fact that, and this has nothing to do with you, but the fact that the planning board and the zoning board, they're seeing increased lot coverage variances as non-issues, right? And you compile a number of those with the amount of development we're seeing, and all of a sudden, you know, we realize that we're losing our greenscape. We're inundated with hardscape. And to me, you know, roofs are an opportunity to say, hey, I took X away from your ground plane, and I can, you know, mitigate the effects that that might have by putting in, you know, more permeable surfaces.
So look, let's do something different, which we've done on a different project that I can point to. But on the ground floor, on the entire perimeter of the commercial space, we could take a 2-foot essentially bioswale and wrap it around our commercial space where we can, and essentially create a tank that our stormwater would drain into. We have done that extremely effectively at the Brunswick Center. Now
I think those are great strategies.
300 feet. Look, just full disclosure, the stuff we got to plant in this, because they're engineered soil, are not evergreens. They make a comeback in the spring and summer and looks great, but in the winter it looks like dirt. Unfortunately.
Understood.
So, but that's something that we could absolutely do, and I think would actually look great. Also not married to the size of the square, you know, the roof deck.
Okay.
So happy to reduce it by something reasonable.
Thank you for that, Ben. And thank you for coming back and presenting. Open it up to anybody else that wants to make any last comments on this project. I assume, Ben, we're okay not reviewing the other. It's a mirror of this. I will go back to my deck real quick.
It's the mirror of it. We tried really hard to make it look different. What's changed is
I put the two facades here. So one is, you know, one is more masonry heavy, and the other is more, you know, the more prominent, larger one is more glass.
And it waves. The one next to Robinson's house actually waves. You know, there's angled windows. The other one is the Beanie's liquor store currently is just a straight facade, basically.
Straight facade. Yep. All right. Thank you for that. Assume there's no additional comments. Anybody would like to offer comments, thoughts? Anybody need anything? Everybody having a lovely May thus far? All right. Listen, thank you everyone for your time tonight. It's great to see you all again. I'm gonna put out, I just want to say two things. Look next month for us to have a little bit more of a formal approach. We want to make some amendments to our bylaws relative to sections in the meetings, what it means to be a member of the VNA, what membership requirements there are. We want to help define that stuff a little bit better. And we may do a dual in-person in the Village Park and Zoom, if not next month, the month after, because I feel like, you know, it'd be nice to see everybody. And for those of you that aren't comfortable doing that, we will continue to have this virtual format. All right.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Good night.
Have a lovely evening.
Have a good night.
Good night, all.
Thank you.